Hi everyone, Michelle here with Sew It Online, and this video is how to thread the Brillant Babylock sewing machine and a few other things that you may want to know about this one. So let's take a look at the machine. The Brillant is a Babylock sewing machine, and it's got lots of stitches. As you can see when I lift the lid, how many different stitches are up here. Now we're going to just go through the basics of threading the machine and loading a bobbin with thread. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to turn the machine on. There's a power switch on the far right. And I did that on purpose because I want you to know that that noise that you hear when you turn the machine on is going to happen every single time. I don't want you to be afraid that that is just kind of calibrating itself, and it's supposed to happen that way. Okay? One of the things I'm going to do is there is a presser foot lifter back here. I'm going to lift that presser foot up, and we always want to do that before we thread the machine. Another thing we want to do is do what they call a needle up, needle down, and that's this little button right here. It looks like a little needle with a line underneath it. I'm going to push it twice. It puts the needle down into the machine, brings it back up, but it sets the needle exactly where it needs to go, along where the bobbin needs to go, and it will also make using the advanced needle threader a little bit easier for you. Now you'll notice on the far right you've got a nice touch screen right here. These are all the different stitches that you can have access to. So if you notice, these three icons right here, actually these four I should say, all match up to where the icons are here, 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 and here, and then the alphabet. So that's why those are right there. Now the center keys are kind of like your hotkeys. Those are your go-to keys that we use quite often. So if I want to do the number 3, it's a straight stitch. Now you're going to notice that 1 and 3 look very similar to each other, but the first stitch is actually, the thread is over to the far left, so the needle will be over to the far left. The number 3 stitch is going to be over to the far right. I'm sorry, that's a center needle position. The thing that's the same about those is they have 2 dash lines at the very top of that stitch. That means when I push the reverse button, which is right here, it will go, like when it starts stitching, it will go in reverse. I'll be able to use that, go back and then forward in my stitch. If I would select the second stitch, it has a little dot at the very top and then a straight line. It's still going to give me a straight stitch, but this time when I hit the reverse button, it's going to take 3 anchoring stitches right at the beginning, and then when I hit it again at the very end. So if I don't want to go back and forth, I can hit that anchoring stitch, and again I can use stitch number 2. So let's take a look on how to thread this machine, but before we do that, let's wind a bobbin, because we need a bobbin in order to get the machine working. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my thread on the machine, and if you notice at the very top, and again use your user manual, bring it out and kind of follow along to help you thread your machine. Before you know it, you won't even have to reference it when you're threading, but always keep it handy. You'll notice that at the top of your machine you have a straight line and then you have a dash line. The dash line is the path that you will use in order to thread the bobbin or to load the bobbin. So we're going to do that first. So we're going to take the thread and we're going to come across and go over number 1. And see where the dash line is here? We're going to go under that lever. Okay. Now number 2, we're going to come across and we're going to go behind here. All right. Then we're going to bring the thread closest to us. Let me get this. And then you'll be able to see the path. So I put it around the back and then brought it toward me, and then underneath that little disc right there. Okay? I'm going to take my bobbin, and make sure you use the correct bobbin for your machine. Don't take an older bobbin or a metal bobbin that you had maybe from a previous machine and try and use it. Always use the one that are recommended. I'm going to put the bobbin right on this little spool pin here and pop it down. Doesn't matter which way it goes. Now I'm going to take the thread and I'm going to wind it clockwise around the bobbin about 5 times. 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to take this, and if you notice this little notch right here, if I bring the thread over to it and I tuck it underneath it, it automatically cuts my thread, but it keeps that thread anchored on the bobbin. Now I'm going to move my bobbin over so that it matches this guide. This guide is a sensor so that you can't overload your bobbin. So we're just going to put a little bit on here, but you'll also notice that this little start button has changed to orange. Orange stands for I am ready to wind a bobbin. So I kind of start slow and then I keep going. If I know it's winding okay. So we can do that and load the whole bobbin. I'm kind of partial to kind of doing about 3/4 of the way. So I'm going to just stop there just for right now. I'm going to slide this bobbin over to the left and lift it off and then just give it a trim. I like to leave a little tail there. Okay. Before I can load it in here, I need the bobbin to be correctly placed into the machine. In order to do that, I'm going to hold the bobbin like this and pull the thread off the left side. So it kind of looks like the letter P. Once I have that, I'm going to take it and just drop it down into the machine. And you want to make sure it's nice and flat. You're going to notice kind of where the 1/4 inch mark is on the plate itself. We're going to bring the thread over and then swing it around. And just follow this guide all the way around. Come all the way around. And then I like to take the lid at this point, put the lid on, and then I pull it and it finishes a little cutter right there. My bobbin is set in the machine and there's nothing else I have to do to it. Now I am going to take my thread off of the machine and get it off of the route that I took for the bobbin. And I'm going to put it back on the machine. And again, I'm going to use 2 hands when I thread this machine. Make sure your presser foot is up, and also we always do a needle up, needle down. Okay? I'm going to hold the 2 ends of the thread and hold it with your right hand a little bit taut. I'm going to come around 1, down 2. Now I'm going to come up and swing all the way over till I see 4. Yeah, okay. Then I'm going to bring it down, and then I'm going to come underneath. Now there's a little take-up lever right there. So I kind of swing it this way, and as long as I go to the far right, I've caught that take-up lever. I'm still kind of holding on to it. And now this is 5. This is where it gets a little tricky. And just we want to make sure that we hit all of the points. So coming down here is 5. But see, there's actually a number 6 right there. So I'm going to take the thread and I want to go behind there. That's what it should look like when you go into number 6. Now, do you see where the number 7 is here? So I'm going to do this a couple times. See, I'm going to bring it here and I go over the number 7. You see how it's right in the crook right there? Goes over 7. I'm going to come around and you have a cutter right on the side. That's actually step number 8. Once that's in there, I like to put the presser foot down and I take this little lever and I push it down. The needle is automatically threaded. That's your advanced needle threader on this machine. Now, if you do that and nothing happens and it doesn't thread the needle, chances are the needle isn't at the correct position for it to be. So what you need to do is thread your machine again, but this time make sure the presser foot is up and always do that needle up, needle down before you thread the machine. So let's take a look and see what kind of a stitch we have. So I have it set for number 2 right now. Let's see. And I'm going to hit OK. One of the other things you can do, and I forgot to mention this earlier, you know, there's a lot of buttons on here, and sometimes you don't know how to escape out of it. Okay, like, well, how do I get back to where I was? You know, when in doubt, just shut your machine off. It's okay. And then turn it right back on. Okay, it'll come up usually with the last stitch that you were just doing. So it put me back on number 3. And let's see what we have here. I put the presser foot down. I just always, when I thread my machine, no matter what machine it is, I like to just do a couple turn of the hand wheel toward me. As long as I think everything sounds okay and nothing's hitting each other, then I'll continue to stitch. Okay. And now I'm going to use my reverse button. It goes backwards, and then I'm going to go forward. Okay. Now, if I'm done with my stitching, I can then hit the scissors, and it automatically cuts my thread, and I can bring it out. And it leaves just enough tail for it to start stitching again. Now, one of the things you can do on this machine, it actually has a settings page, which is this little notebook paper right here. When I touch that, you can see I have 8 pages of different settings. So you can go in there and change if you're going where the needle position is when you first turn the machine on, if you're going to be using a twin needle. Maybe you want to use this little lever. This is your speed control. You can actually set that to adjust the placement of your needle. So if you're working on a quilt and you need that perfect 1/4 inch, this is a great thing to set up in your settings page. So let's hit OK. I'm back to my main screen. And again, you can even see where my stitch width and stitch length are, and you can adjust those numbers here. Okay. Now you notice this one right here, it says 2.5 millimeters. There's a little black box around it. That means that that is the default setting of the machine. You can always change it to what you want it to be. But remember, if you're not sure where it was to begin with, go back to where there's a black box behind it, and that was the original setting. So it's easy to thread the Brillant. It's a fun machine to try. You've got lots of decorative stitches to use. So get the user manual out, get some fabric out, and have some fun with it. I know you're going to enjoy sewing with it.